Zayn Malik has left One Direction to be a normal 22-year-old and mass hysteria has ensued. Today on the Trews we ask, is One Direction more important than the general election?
Zayn Malik has officially quit One Direction. Yes guys, it's actually true. Directioners, are we gonna be okay?
I don't want to do my own version of what she's doing, try and reach out and understand what young people who love One Direction are going through, but I would like to honestly appraise what the situation is. What is Zayn? Zayn in One Direction, he's very good looking, you can see that, he's the shy one, and in his narrative when they were elected on X Factor, he was a terrible dancer and didn't want to do the dancing. So I suppose what Zayn must represent to One Directioners is the one that's a little bit vulnerable. So Zayn leaving may bring to the forefront feelings of vulnerability and feelings of loss.
Zayn and One Direction have now confirmed that he is out of the band for good. This is not a joke.
So Zayn Malik, the one that wouldn't dance, the one that had the least Twitter followers, the one that seemed to me to be kind of vulnerable, is leaving, and I imagine it's because as a 22-year-old kid he can't cope with the crucible of fame, a common phenomenon. This week Lil Chris was found dead. Last year Simone Battle, a former American X Factor contestant, committed suicide. What is this crucible of fame, this storm that these young people are dragged into? What is it made of? Obviously it's a commodity that makes money, but what is the resource in young people's hearts and beings and makeup that's being tapped into? We've had like boy band phenomena since, I suppose, Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra had screaming hysterical girl fans, as did the Beatles, as did the Monkees, as did the Bay City Rollers, Boyzone, Take That, NSYNC. But this phenomena is ongoing. So what is the continual resource that Zayn Malik and One Direction tap into? I think it comes from what is best described by the cult of Dionysus. Dionysus is the god of revelry, wine, theatre, ritual and madness. He was an androgynous male god figure. In a culture that tells us that the only things that matter are commodities, where our political narratives seem empty and meaningless and don't connect to people and aren't worth voting for because they don't make any difference, what we have to conclude is young people not being interested in politics isn't apathy, it's reflexive impotence. They recognise it's meaningless. Across the last series of X Factor, 40 million of us voted. That's more than voted in the last general election. You can say like, well that's not right, we should care more about politics, but should we though? No politician is going to connect to a teenage girl in the way that Zayn Malik does, and it's not just because he's a good looking boy, it's because he speaks to things that are important to them. They're awakening as human beings. If we don't have any cultural artifacts on which to reflect and focus those emotions, those feelings, that energy, then it will go awry, it will become a resource that's just commodified. One of the worrying trends that's sprung up since Zayn left is the hashtag cut for Zayn, where young girls are cutting themselves as a demonstration of how deeply affected they are by him leaving. So us being frivolous and snooty and condescending about that is really the wrong approach. What that indicates to me is young females connect to this type of pop music and figures like Zayn Malik in a way that they don't other aspects of their culture. This is something that for them they've invested real meaning, something they will vote for, something they will financially invest in, something they will attend the ritual performances of the gigs, they will wear the uniform of the merchandise, they will harm themselves, make physical real sacrifices and bloodlettings in a way that is obviously religious. What I think Zayn Malik leaving One Direction represents is the loss of religion, the loss of spirituality in our culture. The kind of nihilistic consumerism and capitalism leads to phenomena that cannot ultimately cater to the feelings that they rouse. What it rouses in young women, I imagine, is a sense of connection, passion, meaning. That's nowhere else in their culture. They're not getting it from their politics. Perhaps they'll get it from one another. What can we learn from this? Well, to create a culture that's incorporative. In ancient Greece, they recognised you need a god like Dionysus, a god that represents revelry, chaos, female emancipation and empowerment, that those ideas need to have a focus, need to have an idol, an icon. If you don't have a direct way of accessing that energy, the energy's not going to go away. The energy will just find its way into consumerism. It'll just be sold and commodified and sold back to you as a lunchbox.
Like a One Direction lunchbox.
In a way, One Direction matters a lot more than the general election. No one's going to self-harm when William Hague steps down at the next election.
You have nothing to fear.
They know politicians don't care about them. With Zayn Malik, at least they had someone who represented them, who represented their feelings.
Buckingham Palace was where the people found unity, a place for sharing a common grief.
In a way, when Diana died, what were we grieving? What were we grieving when Diana died? Was it just the loss of that woman, or was it the loss of something far greater? True national identity, true togetherness. True News, subscribe here.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the nose. If the nose was true, I want some Trews. Let's have some Trews.